Uncovering my wife's boss's obsession, saved her career, sparked a scandal, destroyed our marriage, and left me heartbroken. Hi there, I'm Nathan, and I've been riding what you might call an emotional roller coaster lately. By day, I'm a fairly accomplished IT consultant, helping companies secure their data and optimize their tech systems. By night? Well, lately, it feels like I've taken on the role of a detective in my own marriage. My wife, Eliza, is a marketing executive, a brilliant one at that, and for the longest time, our life together seemed almost too good to be true. We met at a digital marketing conference 8 years ago, and it didn't take long for us to become inseparable. We've always supported each other's careers and respected our professional spaces, but recent events have put that balance to the test. It started subtly enough to almost dismiss as nothing. Eliza began working later than usual, chalking it up to a high-profile project her company had landed, which was being spearheaded by her boss, Adrian. Charismatic and influential, Adrian had the industry clout that could intimidate anyone, and his interest in mentoring Eliza was initially a point of pride for both of us. However, as the weeks rolled by, her late nights became more frequent, and our conversations about her day grew vaguer. Initially, I attributed my growing unease to typical relationship ebbs and flows. After all, every marriage has its phases, right? But the changes in Eliza were becoming too consistent to brush off. There were those hushed phone calls she'd quickly dismiss if I entered the room, her sudden preoccupation with her appearance, and the way her phone never seemed to leave her side anymore, glowing silently with new messages that she guarded like top-secret documents. One evening, as I sat waiting for her to return from another extended workday, I couldn't shake the feeling that the distance between us was growing, not just in time spent apart, but in our connection. The couch felt colder, the house quieter, and the small acts of intimacy that had been the bedrock of our relationship, like sharing details of our day over dinner, had all but disappeared. What was supposedly a demanding project at work was slowly morphing into a wedge between us, driven deeper by every unshared detail and every missed dinner. As I lay in bed that night, listening to the silence of our home, the seeds of doubt took root in my mind. Was it really just the project keeping her away, or was there something, or someone, else? Determined to understand, I resolved to pay closer attention, to look for the signs I might have missed, to find the pattern in the chaos. Little did I know, this decision would lead me down a path that would challenge everything I thought I knew about trust, love, and the fine line between them. It started with a new watch, not just any watch, but an upscale designer brand that Eliza casually flaunted at dinner one evening. "Oh, this? It's just a little something from work," she said nonchalantly, her eyes avoiding mine. "For exceeding our quarterly targets." The flicker of unease within me sparked into a flame of suspicion. Our marriage, once marked by openness and shared struggles, seemed to be slipping into a territory that was foreign and unsettling. As the days passed, more little somethings began to appear. A high-end handbag was just a team appreciation gift, and a pair of luxury shoes was a reward for a successful presentation, or so Eliza claimed. Each item was like a brick, building a wall between us, with her explanations doing little to bridge the gap. Her phone, a device that was once left carelessly around the house, now seemed to be glued to her at all times, its screen perpetually face down. One evening, as we sat in the soft glow of the living room, the silence hanging awkwardly between us, I decided to address the elephant in the room. "Eliza, can we talk?" My voice was calm, but inside, my nerves were tight coils ready to spring. She looked up, her expression guarded. "Of course, what's up?" I hesitated, choosing my words carefully. "It's about all these gifts from work. They seem quite extravagant, don't you think?" Eliza laughed, a sound that once warmed my heart, but now felt cold. "Nathan, you're worrying over nothing. It's just work appreciating my hard work. You know how competitive the marketing field is." "But it's not just the gifts, Eliza," I pressed on, my voice firmer. "You've been different, distant, and your phone, you never leave it out anymore." Her smile faded, replaced by a flicker of annoyance. "Are you spying on me now?" Her tone was sharp, a stark contrast to her usual gentle cadence. "Nathan, you're just stressed. You're reading into things too much." Her words stung, and a part of me wanted to believe her, to laugh it off as stress or paranoia. But the gut feeling that something wasn't right was too strong to ignore. Her explanations, while plausible, felt rehearsed, as if she had anticipated the conversation and had her defenses ready. "Eliza, I'm not accusing you of anything," I said slowly, my heart heavy. "I just miss us, the way we used to be." She sighed, her expression softening slightly. "I miss us too," she admitted, reaching out to touch my hand. Let's not let this get between us, okay? I promise, there's nothing to worry about. I wanted to believe her, to let her words wash away my doubts. But as we continued our evening, the tension simmered just beneath the surface, a silent acknowledgement of the growing rift in our once unshakable bond. As I watched her retreat back to her phone, the screen lighting up her face in the dim room, the seed of doubt planted itself deeper, rooted in the fear that our marriage was on a precipice, with an abyss of unknowns yawning wide before us. A couple of weeks later, I accompanied Eliza to her company's annual gala. It was a lavish affair, held in a grand ballroom with crystal chandeliers and elegant decor. As I adjusted my tie, feeling slightly out of place among the sea of high-powered executives and sleek professionals, I spotted Eliza mingling with her colleagues. Her laughter floated across the room, drawing me towards her. That's when I saw him, Adrian, her boss. He was exactly as I imagined from Eliza's descriptions, charming, with a magnetic presence that seemed to draw people to him. He was speaking animatedly with a group that included Eliza, his hand occasionally brushing her arm as he emphasized a point. As I approached, his eyes flicked to mine, registering my presence with a quick, evaluative glance, before turning back to Eliza, with a smile that seemed just a touch too intimate. The evening progressed, and I couldn't help but notice Adrian's attentiveness to Eliza. He was constantly by her side, laughing at her jokes, complimenting her work, and finding reasons to touch her, a hand on her back, a gentle nudge, a whisper in her ear that made her smile but also seem uncomfortable. Finally, unable to shake the growing unease, I pulled Eliza aside. "Does he always act like that with you?" I asked, trying to keep my voice neutral despite the irritation brewing inside me. Eliza looked surprised, then defensive. "Adrian? He's just being friendly, Nathan. He's like that with everyone. You're reading too much into it." "But he's your boss, Eliza. It seems unprofessional." My words hung between us, heavy with implication. Eliza sighed, her eyes scanning the room before settling back on me. "Nathan, please, don't start. Adrian's been a great mentor to me. I don't want to make a scene here. Can we just enjoy the evening?" I nodded, stifling my concerns, but the rest of the night felt tainted. Watching Adrian, his charisma seemed less like charm and more like a calculated veneer. A few days after the gala, still troubled by what I'd witnessed, I reached out to an old college friend, Derek, who also worked at Eliza's company. We met for coffee, where I cautiously broached the subject. "Derek, have you noticed anything off about Adrian, with how he is around Eliza?" I asked, watching his reaction closely. Derek hesitated, then lowered his voice. "Look, Nathan, I probably shouldn't say this, but Adrian has a bit of a reputation. He's known for getting close to his team, especially the women. There were a couple of incidents in the past, rumors of special treatment, you know." My heart sank as Derek continued. "And there's talk that he's particularly interested in Eliza. He's ambitious and doesn't like obstacles. You being around might not sit well with him if he sees you as one." The pieces began to fall into place, each one adding weight to my worst fears. It wasn't just paranoia. Adrian was not only crossing professional boundaries, but possibly plotting to sideline me, to isolate Eliza for reasons that turned my stomach. I thanked Derek for his honesty, my mind racing with this new information. The drive home was a blur as I grappled with the reality of the situation. Adrian was a threat, not just to my marriage, but to Eliza's career and well-being. I had to do something, but the question of how to protect her without driving her further away loomed large, casting a long shadow over any solution I could think of. Determined to protect Eliza and expose Adrian's true nature, I knew I needed concrete evidence. I spent countless evenings scouring the internet, looking into Adrian's professional history, and reaching out discreetly to former colleagues of his. What I found was unsettling, a clear pattern of unethical behavior, particularly involving women who had mysteriously left the company or transferred departments shortly after working closely with him. There were also whispers of sealed settlements and non-disclosure agreements that painted a grim picture of a man skilled at evading repercussions for his actions. With this information, I felt a cold resolve settle over me. It wasn't just about suspicion anymore. It was about exposing a predator who was putting my wife at risk. I decided to confront Adrian directly, hoping that a direct approach might shake his confidence or lead him to slip up and reveal more than he intended. I chose the setting carefully, a popular industry networking event that I knew Adrian would attend. It was public enough to keep the conversation civil, but also filled with enough industry insiders to put pressure on Adrian. As I approached him, standing by the bar with a group of colleagues, I saw his smile falter briefly as he noticed me. Adrian, may I have a word? I said, my tone polite yet firm. He excused himself from the group and joined me at a quiet corner with a cautious look. Nathan, what can I do for you? Adrian asked, regaining his composure. I've been hearing interesting things about your mentorship style, I began, watching his reaction closely. Seems like you're quite invested in the personal and professional development of your team. Adrian's smile was tight, his eyes searching mine for signs of my intent. I take my role as a leader seriously, he responded smoothly. I'm passionate about nurturing talent, especially promising talent like Eliza. Yes, about that, I continued, leaning in slightly. It's come to my attention that some of your previous mentees have had to leave the company under less than ideal circumstances. Seems like a tough break for them. Adrian's demeanor cooled instantly, his eyes hardening. I'm not sure what you're implying, Nathan, but I'd be careful about spreading unsubstantiated rumors. It's a small industry, and reputations are fragile, he said, his tone carrying a thinly veiled threat. I'm merely concerned about my wife's career, I replied, maintaining a calm facade. Just ensuring that her environment is supportive and safe. Adrian gave a short laugh, dismissing my comments. Eliza is doing wonderfully. You have nothing to worry about, unless you're looking for trouble, that is. With that, he clapped me on the shoulder, a bit too firmly, and walked away, leaving me with a chilling sense that this confrontation had just escalated our conflict to a new level. As I watched him rejoin his colleagues, laughing as if our conversation had never happened, I realized the depth of his manipulative abilities. He was a master at playing the part, and now I was directly in his sights as an adversary. But rather than deter me, his veiled threats only solidified my resolve. I needed to protect Eliza, not just from potential career sabotage, but from a man who viewed people as pawns in his power games. The battle lines were drawn, and I was more determined than ever to bring the truth to light. As the situation with Adrian escalated, I knew I had to act strategically. Using my background in IT, I devised a plan to record our next encounter. I subtly modified a common business app to include recording functionality, ensuring it was discreet and undetectable for the untrained eye. This setup wasn't just to protect myself, it was to gather undeniable evidence of Adrian's true character and intentions. Meanwhile, I reached out to several of Adrian's former colleagues and subordinates. It wasn't easy. Many were reluctant to speak, and some conversations ended before they even really started. But persistence paid off. I found 3 women who were willing to share their experiences, all echoing similar patterns of behavior. Each story was a piece of the puzzle, and as horrific as they were, they painted a consistent picture of harassment and manipulation. I recorded these testimonies with their consent, preparing a detailed dossier of Adrian's misconduct. With this evidence in hand, I contacted the company's board under the guise of discussing a new technology implementation that could benefit the company. It was a risk, but I gambled that the potential for a new tech solution would be enough to pique their interest. They agreed to a meeting, and I prepared meticulously, knowing this could be my only shot to expose Adrian. On the day of the meeting, I entered the boardroom with my laptop, my heart pounding but my resolve clear. The board members greeted me, their faces a mix of curiosity and formal detachment. As we sat down, I started off discussing the proposed tech implementation, laying out its benefits and how it could streamline certain company processes. However, as the presentation progressed, I shifted gears. I brought you here under one pretense, but I must address a more pressing issue, I began, the room's atmosphere tensing immediately. I clicked to a new slide, this one titled, Internal Risks to Company Culture and Reputation. I outlined the patterns of Adrian's behavior, presenting anonymized accounts first to demonstrate the systemic nature of the problem. When I saw the board members' growing concern, I played the audio recordings of my own encounters with Adrian, followed by the testimonies of the women he had harassed. The room was silent, except for the voices emanating from the speakers, each story building on the last. When the recordings finished, I let the weight of the words hang in the air before continuing. These actions pose a direct threat not just to individual employees, but to the entire organization, I stated firmly. They risk legal consequences, reputational damage, and the loss of talented staff. The board members exchanged uneasy looks. Some seemed shocked, others were visibly upset. The chairperson cleared his throat. Mr. Adrian will be asked to respond to these allegations. We take these matters very seriously, and we will conduct a thorough investigation. As I left the boardroom, I felt a mix of relief and apprehension. I had done my part, come what may. The seeds of accountability were planted, and while the outcome was uncertain, I knew that I had finally taken significant action to protect not only Eliza, but also others who might fall victim to Adrian's manipulations in the future. The days following the board meeting were tense and uncertain. News of Adrian's suspension pending a full investigation sent ripples through the company, and inevitably, the details began to seep out into the broader employee base. While I had hoped to keep the specifics discreet, the nature of such revelations made them impossible to contain. Rumors swirled, and the workplace was abuzz with whispers and speculation. Eliza came home that evening, her face etched with a mixture of shock and confusion. As soon as she stepped through the door, I could tell she knew. The air between us was charged, heavy with unspoken questions and raw emotions. "Nathan, why didn't you tell me what you were planning?" Her voice was low, hurt. "I heard about Adrian, and that you were involved in bringing the allegations to light." I sighed, knowing this conversation was inevitable and necessary. "I wanted to protect you," I began, my voice steady, but filled with regret for the pain I saw in her eyes. "I couldn't stand by and watch Adrian's behavior continue, and I feared how involved you might become, given his interest in you." Eliza shook her head, her expression torn between anger and sadness. "But going behind my back, Nathan? Gathering evidence and speaking to others about my boss without even a word to me? How do you think that makes me feel?" Her question stung, a painful reminder of the complexity of our situation. "I'm sorry, Eliza. Truly I am. I thought I was doing the right thing, but I see now how this might feel like a betrayal to you. I should have been more open with you from the start." Eliza paced the room, her arms crossed, her brow furrowed in thought. "And Adrian," she continued, her voice cracking slightly, "I can't believe I was so blind to his actions. I feel so manipulated, betrayed by him, and now this wedge between us." I reached out, wanting to comfort her, but she stepped back, needing space. "I need some time to process all this, Nathan. Everything feels like it's been turned upside down." Adrian's suspension was just the beginning. The company launched a full investigation, interviewing staff and reviewing past complaints that had mysteriously vanished or been resolved quietly. The evidence I had gathered became a cornerstone of the investigation, revealing a pattern of behavior that many had suspected but few had dared to challenge. As the weeks turned into months, the strain on our marriage did not fade as I had hoped. Eliza grappled with her feelings of betrayal and her place within the company, now tainted by her close association with Adrian. Though she was not implicated in any wrongdoing, the whispers and sideways glances took their toll. Meanwhile, I wrestled with my own guilt over my secretive handling of the situation and the impact it had on Eliza. Our home became a quiet battleground, filled with long silences and missed connections. The revelation of Adrian's actions and my role in exposing them had changed everything, challenging the foundation of trust and openness we once took for granted. In the end, Adrian was formally dismissed from the company, a decision that brought a sense of justice, but little peace. The fallout was extensive and personal. Eliza decided to take a leave of absence from work, needing space to rebuild her professional identity away from the shadow of scandal. Our marriage, once a partnership fortified by mutual respect and love, now required a different kind of work. The events had forced us both to reconsider what we expected from each other and how we communicated. It was clear that healing would take time, and while the love between us remained, it had been altered, perhaps irrevocably, by the storm we had weathered together. As I sit in the quiet of our now emptier home, the absence of Eliza's presence is palpable. Her decision to take time apart to reflect on our relationship leaves me wrestling with a mix of emotions, relief, sorrow, and a deep, unsettling sense of loss. While Adrian's manipulative reign at the company has ended, the cost of that victory weighs heavily on my heart and our marriage. The silence of the house seems to echo back my own thoughts, each one a question about the choices I made and the secrets I kept. In my determination to protect Eliza, to shield her from Adrian's predatory behavior, I crossed lines that I had never intended to cross. I acted out of love, yet in doing so, I undermined the trust and openness that had been the cornerstone of our relationship. As I sit here, the victory over Adrian feels hollow, overshadowed by the personal toll it has taken. Eliza's absence has given me too much time to think, to reflect on where things went wrong. Was I too protective? Too controlling? Did my actions show a lack of faith in her ability to handle her own battles? These questions haunt me, their answers elusive, shifting like shadows in the fading light. I realize now that in my quest to save us, to save her, I may have inadvertently pushed her further away. The irony is cruel. My efforts to pull us closer might have been the very thing that undid us. The journey from suspicion to confrontation, and finally to Adrian's dismissal, was driven by a desire to right a wrong, to stand up against injustice. Yet, the personal landscape left in the aftermath is stark and challenging. I thought I was battling for our future, but perhaps I was also battling against the very foundation of our partnership: trust. As the days turn into weeks, and communication with Eliza remains sparse and strained, the reality of our situation settles in. We are at a crossroads, each path laden with uncertainty and the potential for deepening wounds or gradual healing. The space between us, once filled with love and laughter, now holds a quiet tension, awaiting for what might or might not be mended. In this solitude, I come to recognize the fine line between protection and control, between intervening and overpowering. The lessons are harsh but necessary, teaching me about the complexities of love and the sometimes painful growth it requires. As I ponder the future, I hold on to a fragile hope that the love which brought us together can also bring us back from the brink, stronger and more aware of the delicate balance needed to nurture a relationship. I end this chapter of my life with a deeper understanding of the cost of my actions and a resolve to approach the future with more openness and less presumption. Whether Eliza and I can rebuild what was lost remains uncertain, but what is certain is that I will never again underestimate the importance of trust, nor the strength it takes to truly share one's life with another. The journey continues, and with it, the hope for redemption and reconciliation, however distant they may seem.